Before we begin, viewer discretion is advised. This is a work of entertainment. What happens when Hollywood's ultimate gunslinger steps into a brightly lit daytime studio where talk show hosts, not outlaws, rule the frontier? What happened when Clint Eastwood, a man who has stared down villains on dusty streets and outlasted the toughest critics alive, suddenly finds himself sitting across from a table of TV personalities convinced they can outmaneuver him? It starts like any standard appearance. A legendary actor arrives to discuss a new film, prepared to share wisdom earned over decades. But behind the cheery studio lights and polite applause, something else simmers on agenda, tucked in the shadows, waiting for its moment. What should have been a simple conversation about art is about to erupt into a clash. No one in the audience could have predicted Clint Eastwood. Clint Eastwood, a name that hits with the weight of thunder rolling over Canyon Rock. His face, sculpted by time and grit, recalls both the raw force of his westerns and the gravity of his Oscar-winning dramas. Dot across the stage sits Joy Behar, sharp-tongued, unfiltered, and unflinching. To her, Eastwood isn't a guest, he's a target. The stage is set. The lights feel too bright. The applause feels too eager, and every smile hides the potential for sparks to ignite. Dot at home. Viewers have no idea they're about to witness one of daytime television's most unforgettable confrontations. For now, the hosts beam as if nothing is amiss. Whoopi Goldberg prepares her introduction with the warmth of a seasoned professional. Sarah N leans forward, eyes bright with admiration for the cinematic giant about to step into their circle. But to the left, Joy Behar sits with a smile that doesn't quite reach her eyes. The man who wants to find silver screen toughness now walks into a studio built on chatter and banter. He's here to talk about redemption, about truth. But soon, those very words will become weapons. And the question looms, when a Hollywood icon meets daytime TV, it's a most relentless provocateur. Who really holds the power? The cameras roll. The theme music fades. Applause roars across the studio. Whoopi straightens in her chair, voice warm and steady. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the legendary Clint Eastwood. The audience erupts clapping, cheering, even whistling. For a brief moment, the studio feels more like a movie premiere than a talk show. Then he appears. Clint Eastwood walks in with the quiet authority of a man who doesn't need to prove anything. His steps are deliberate, his posture relaxed, and yet the energy in the room bends around him. He settles into his chair, weathered hands resting calmly, eyes scanning the panel with the patience of someone who has seen every kind of storm. "Thank you for having me," he says, his gravelly voice cutting cleanly through the last waves of applause. Whoopi smiles, eager to set the tone. "So, Clint, tell us about your latest project. What drew you to this story?" Eastwood leans forward, thoughtful but steady. "It's about second chances," he says. "Sometimes people deserve another shot at redemption, especially when the world's written them off." The audience murmurs in appreciation. Sarah Haynes leans even closer, admiration shining. "That's such a beautiful theme. At this point in your career, how do you choose the stories you want to tell?" Eastwood answers without hesitation. "I look for truth. Hollywood's got plenty of fantasy. I'm interested in what's real, what says something honest about the human condition." The room listens, captivated. For several minutes, the conversation flows like a perfectly choreographed dance. Eastwood speaks about directing, about guiding actors, about lessons learned over decades. His voice is calm, reflective, even tender. The hosts listen with genuine respect. The audience is silent, hanging on every word like they're witnessing a masterclass. But not everyone is swept up in the moment. Joy Behar sits back, silent but calculating. Her smile never reaches her eyes. Her hands are folded neatly, but her gaze flickers with something sharp. Perhaps Anticipation. She hastened his spoken answer, but her silence is loud. She's waiting, the calm before the storm. Every question about redemption feels like the drawing back of a bowstring, the studio, glowing in Eastwood's easy storytelling charm, has no idea a storm cloud is sitting inches away. But Eastwood feels it. Whether it's instinct, it's the same instinct that once helped him outdraw villains on the big screen, or simply intuition. He knows something is coming. For now, he continues speaking about art, truth, and the pursuit of redemption. The audience hangs on every word, unaware that the moment Joy Behar opens her mouth, everything in this interview will change. The conversation glides forward, the hosts leaning in, the atmosphere almost reverent prayer for daytime TV. And then, without warning, the air shifts. Joy Behar straightens. Her polite smile sharpens into something colder. She tilts her head, eyes glinting with mischief or something more dangerous. "Clint," she says, suddenly, slicing cleanly through the flow of conversation like a blade through silk. "Can I ask you something?" The room stiffens. Our tone is different. Not warm, not curious. Something else entirely. Her tone carries a weight everyone feels at once. "You talk about truth and redemption." Joy begins, sounding casual, but every syllable is loaded. "But don't you think some of your past comments about certain political figures contradict that message?" The words hang in the air like smoke. The audience falls silent. Sarah shifts in her seat. Whoopi shoots. Joy a warning. Look, but the line's already been crossed. Clint turns his head slowly, his eyes narrowing just enough to signal the change. The reflective artist is gone. In his place is the man audiences have watched for decades. The one whose stare alone can freeze a room. Which comments would those be, Joy? He asks, voice calm and measured, but edged with steel. Joy smiles, almost sweetly. The sweetness, however, is poisoned. "Oh, you know," she says, drawing it out, "your support for certain politicians who shall remain nameless who've made some pretty questionable remarks about women and minorities." The temperature in the studio seems to drop. A murmur ripples through the crowd. Even the crew hesitates, cameras rolling, hands motionless. Everyone feels it now. The storm has arrived. Clint's answer is even, composed, but carries the heft of a man who isn't afraid of a fight. "I don't recall making any statements that disparaged women or minorities." Joy leans in, pressing her advantage. "Maybe not directly," she says, "but by association." And just like that, the easy calm around the interview disappears. The match has been struck. Joy's voice rises slightly, feeding on the tension. "Don't you think your political endorsements send a message?" she presses. Eyebrows lifting, a smirk, daring him to deny it. The other hosts shift. Whoopi lowers her gaze. Sarah fiddles with her note cards. "None of this was planned." Clint leans back, settling into his chair like a sheriff ready for a showdown. He fixes Joy with a stare so cold it might crack glass. When he speaks, his words slice clean through the silence. "Young lady," he says evenly, "I've been in this business since before you were born. I've worked with people from every background, every persuasion. I judge them by their character, not their party." Joy flinches at young lady, her face tightening. "Excuse me," she snaps, voice rising. "I think I have every right to ask tough questions of my guests." "And I," Clint replies, unruffled, "have every right not to answer gotcha questions from someone more interested in controversy than conversation." A sharp gasp breaks from the audience. Joy's cheeks flush, but she doesn't back down. Instead, she pushes harder, voice pitched just a bit too high. "Gotcha questions. I'm asking about your public statements. That's called journalism." Clint lets out a low, dangerous chuckle, the kind that feels more threatening than actual laughter is that what we're recalling it now. "Journalism," he says. "In my day, that meant research and facts, not fishing expeditions. The room goes still. Even the equipment seems to hum more quietly. Joy's eyes flash.
Well?
There was that whole empty chair thing. She fires back, smugness seeping into every word. A flicker crosses Clint's face, not embarrassment, but recognition. Readiness.
You mean?
He says slowly, voice dropping, when I used a creative metaphor to make a point about accountability. Yeah, I remember. What about it? Joy pounces. Don't you think it was a little, I don't know, unhinged? The silence that follows is deafening. The audience doesn't move. Crew members stand frozen, as if any sound might trigger an explosion. Clint leans forward again, the steel in his voice returning with lethal precision. Joy, let me ask you something. She blinks, throw nod for the first time. What does that have to do with just answer? Clint cuts in, sharper now. How many films have you made? Joy stumbles. That's not the point. I'm a television host and comedian. How many films have you directed? Produced? Starred in? Precis. How many Academy Awards have you won? How many careers have you helped launch? How many stories have you told that actually mattered to people? Joy's bravado wavers, but her voice spikes defensively. I entertain people every day on this show. Clint tilts his head slightly, eyes narrowing even more. Do you? He asks. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you ambush guests and stir up controversy for ratings. Is that your idea of entertainment? The line slices through the air like a blade. The audience doesn't clap, doesn't cheer. They just sit there, stunned, the weight of the exchange pressing down like low black clouds. In that instant, everyone understands. This is no longer an interview. It's a showdown. Joy still refuses to retreat. Ercha. Joy erupts. Her voice shoots upward sharp, edged with fury. So you think you can come on my show and lecture me about substance? Clint's eyes flicker, the faintest glint of steel appearing just enough to signal danger before he delivers the line that detonates in the room like dynamite. This isn't a show anymore, Joy. It's a circus. And you're the head clown. The audience, gas one sharp, collective inhale, like a gunshot cracking through the room. The hosts freeze, faces pale, hands motionless. Joy jerks back as if physically hit, her mouth opening and closing with no words coming out. For the first time, she doesn't look like the fearless provocateur she looks like someone who's just realized the floor beneath her is split wide open. Silence engulfs the studio thick. Electric. Clint doesn't gloat. He doesn't push. He simply sits in absolute stillness, the calm eye of a storm he's already winning. Round one of this clash of titans is over. Everyone knows round two is coming. Joy gathers herself, gripping the table like it's the only solid thing left. This is my house, she declares, voice trembling despite her attempt at authority. These are my rules. If you don't like the questions, you don't belong here. The words are meant to sound commanding. They don't. Her breath is shaky, her voice cracking at the edges. Across from her, Clint Eastwood sits unshaken, watching her with the patience of a man who has stared down storms, far larger than this one. He doesn't respond immediately. Instead, he stands, slowly, deliberately, every inch of his frame unfolding with quiet precision. A hush sweeps the studio. His presence seems to grow towering over the table, over the cameras, over Joy herself. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't need to. When he finally speaks, it isn't to Joy, it's to the audience. Folks, he says, turning to the main camera, locking eyes with everyone watching at home. I came here today to talk about a film that matters to me. A story about redemption. Second chances. Instead, what you're seeing is someone trying to score points with gotcha questions. And that tells you everything you need to know about what passes for television these days. The audience hangs on every word. Joy sputters, trying to claw back control. Don't you dare. Clint doesn't even look at her. You say this is your house. Joy, he continues. Voice, calm, resonant. And maybe it is. But take a good look at it. He gestures lightly toward the setting. House guests are ambushed. In your house, disagreement is treated like disrespect. In your house, drama matters more than understanding. The pause that follows feels suffocating. Well, he finishes, voice like a final verdict. Congratulations. You've built yourself quite a house. No applause. No cheers. Just silence, loud, heavy, damning. Joy's hands shake on the table. She tries to speak, her voice cracking. You can't just walk in here and talk down to me like that. But Clint is already stepping back, reclaiming the entire studio with nothing more than presence. He fixes her with one last, quiet look. Joy, he says softly, I don't need to talk down to you. You've already done that yourself. The silence that follows is so deep. The faint hum of the overhead lights becomes audible. The power in the room shifts entirely. Clint Eastwood owns it now. Joy trembles not from fear, but from rage. Her voice spikes into a near screech as she slams her palm on the table. You can't come on my show, insult me, and walk away like nothing happened. Clint doesn't flinch. His gaze stays steady, calm, unmovable. I didn't come here to insult anyone, he says. I came here to talk about a film. You're the one who decided to make this about you. Joy jabs a finger toward him, her hand shaking. Security, she blurts. Get security in here. The audience gasps. The request sounds absurd, almost comedic. Clint Eastwood, in his 90s, standing calmly with nothing but his words. And Joy Behar is calling for backup. Clint lets out a low, almost amused laugh. Security, repeats. What are they going to do? Joy, arrest me for hurting your feelings. The line cracks through the tension like a whip. Joy tries again, voice breaking on the edges. This is live television. You can't just leave because you don't like the questions. Can't I? Clint replies. He reaches for his microphone, unclips it, and places it gently on the tabula slow. Deliberate motion, like a gunslinger holstering his weapon after a duel. He straightens his jacket, then turns back to the camera. Folks, I came here today as a courtesy. I wanted to share a story about redemption, about second chances. Instead, I walked into an ambush designed to go viral. He pauses, letting the words settle like dust after a gunfight. That's not conversation. That's not journalism. That's just noise. The studio is frozen. The hosts sit pale and silent. The crew doesn't move. Everyone knows they've just witnessed something that will not be forgotten. Joy makes one last attempt, her voice sharp and shrill. You arrogant has-been. You think you can just walk in here and tell me how to do my job? Clint stops mid-dash stride. He turns. His expression sharpens cold. Precise, lethal in its calm. When he speaks, his voice is quiet, but every word lands like a hammer. Husband, he repeats, softly. That's rich coming from someone whose entire career depends on talking about other people's accomplishments. The reaction is immediate. A loud, collective gasp surges through the studio. Joy's face deepens into a furious shade of purple. Her lips tremble, but nothing comes out. For the first time in her on-air life, she has no comeback. Clint studies her for one long, steady beat. Then he gives the slightest nod. The nod of a man who knows the fight is already over. Without another word, He turns toward the exit. His footsteps echo softly across the studio floor, each one measured, certain. The cameras catch his silhouette in perfect unbroken, carrying the same quiet authority as every gunslinger he ever played. No music, no applause, just silent man who knows exactly when it's time to leave. The studio doors close behind him. He leaves behind stunned hosts, a breathless audience, and one humiliated Joy Behar clutching the edge of the table like a lifeline she can't let go. For a long, heavy moment, the entire studio is frozen. No clapping, no whispering, not even the shuffle of feet in the crowd, just thick, suffocating silence. Whoopi stares down at her hands. Sarah nervously rearranges her cards. Crew members glance at one another, as if silently asking, "Did that really just happen?" Joy remains rigid, chest heaving, eyes darting desperately as if hoping for an escape hatch. There isn't one. The cameras are still rolling. The audience saw everything, and nothing she says now can erase it. In that breathless silence, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. Clint Eastwood didn't just win the exchange, he ended it. With calm words, with a steady gaze. With the kind of controlled force no outburst could match, he dismantled the confrontation piece by piece, exposing how hollow manufactured outrage can be, then walked away untouched. When the dust settles, the headlines won't praise Joy's tough questions. They'll mark the day she lost control of her own stage, and they'll celebrate the man who proved once again that words, when wielded with precision, cut sharper than bullets. The legend of Clint Eastwood grows, and Joy Behar, for once, has no comeback at all.